Hi, my name is Anasia Miller.
My name is Lasia Batten.
My paper, based off the topic we got, was basically about how our belief in science has a big impact on pandemics and global crises that the world gets. So basically, science has reasons to tell us things. But one thing they do is they hold out on truths or facts we need to know, or we think we need to know, but they don't think we need to, or they believe it's not important when it could be super important for us or to certain people. They hold out on truths, on some things that happen during the experiments, during the testing, during anything. For example, some years ago, they were taking blood from a black woman named Henrietta Lack. And they took her blood cells, and her cells were just amazing. Like, she was rarely sick because her cells were just super strong and would just attack it immediately, and they would win. But they don't tell us that. They don't. Science does not tell us that where they get cancer treating cells from, is from that woman, and they do not tell us that. And that is just like a big, huge thing for the Black community, yet they don't tell us. We didn't know. And actually, her family want money for what she's done. Like, they took a lot of her blood, and yet we never knew. And they didn't do anything. They just took her blood and sent her away. And there's other things. There's like, when Corona first came, they didn't tell us. Now, it was going on around the whole world, and it just wasn't in America yet. And they decided not to tell us. They didn't tell us. They held out on that information because they didn't think it was important. Now, Corona has been around for a long time. And I guess they felt like, well, it's not in America yet. It's not important. It's not this big thing. It's fine. We'll deal with it when we get to it, I guess. We'll share it. And so they found out in December, and people were already dying from this virus, and yet they waited until January when it finally got here and people started dying to tell us that. And that could have been stopped whiles ago. We could have went into quarantine. That way we could have separated ourselves from everybody and stopped it when it was just a little tiny thing, nipped it in the bud, and ended at that. There's also things where science is constantly trying to mess with religion and trying to prove that what we read in our Bibles or whatever else you read is not true. Science has stayed proving that. We never know if they are bending the truth a little bit to try and prove that it's not correct, it's not right. And that could be something big. We would never know because we can't see that. And there's people out there that believe global warming. What else is it? Global warming, walking on the moon, and other things like that we just don't know about because we're not there to experience it. We don't know what's going on in those buildings. And people think. They don't know what to think. Is it true? Is it not? How do I know? I'm not there. That's also with the coronavirus. Some people believe, how do I know this virus is a true and not a magnet of the imagination, because it hasn't happened to me or the people around me. We all have been fine, safe. So how do I know it's not fake? How do I know it's true? It hasn't happened to me or a family member or someone around me. How do I know it's true? It's this big thing, and how are we all supposed to prove it? We can't just all sit here and prove it. We just have to believe that what this person is telling me is true. Now, science can also be determined. Your things that you do is also determined it is also a race thing, not to put it in there, but it is. Almost everything is a race thing, let's be honest. But white people, they also let certain people, not just white people, but they let politics make their decision. So let's say you're a Republican, but you don't trust the Democrats. So if the Democrats say this thing is correct, we should do this, it's the right thing, then the Republicans are like, oh no, if the Democrats say this is right, then it must be wrong. But if the Democrats say this is wrong, don't do it, it will lead to whatever, the Republicans are, oh, the Democrats say it's wrong, well, it must be right, because the Democrats are always saying the lies, and it's never true. So I feel that, yes, that happens. But not only that, but the Black community themselves, we stay our guinea pigs for them. We stay. They use us as testing. No matter what happens, we can die from this stuff, and they just don't care. We're going to keep using you because your lies have no meaning. And this is another reason why some people in the Black community do not trust science, because you are trying to put us in this predicament where we are risking our lives to help you, but you're not doing anything for us in return. There are many things we could go into this about, but I'm gonna stop here. So thank you guys for listening, and I can't wait to hear your feedback and other discussions.
And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my psychology paper. I wrote about how science is being questioned right now, and the scientific method is being put on a pedestal, and basically people are ignoring and disregarding the information we have. And that's really an issue, because up until now, our vaccines, our chemicals, our modern medicine, basically all of these things came from the scientific method, came from scientists, and it was researched extensively by different people using the same method, and it all came out to the same thing, and it's been proven, and it's been tested. So these things are pretty reliable, and people are disregarding it because they don't have personal experience with these things. And I think that's the issue. People a lot right now are questioning and second guessing people who are doing their jobs and who are using scientific method that has been trusted for years, because they don't personally experience these things, and also it's kind of out of ignorance, and it's kind of out of, they don't want to believe it, because in the last year we've experienced a widespread change that none of us could have expected to come. And when things change so suddenly, and you're used to getting what you want, and you can no longer get what you want, and you have to change your whole schedule, and you have to change your whole lifestyle, that's very hard for some people. And it's very hard for some people to adapt and come to terms with reality, and come to terms with the things that they're gonna have to do and the sacrifices they're gonna have to make. And when you don't want to make those sacrifices, and when you don't want to adapt to your new reality, that's where the trouble comes in. Because when these people don't want to adapt, they start to say, oh, it's not real, and it didn't happen to me, it didn't happen to anybody I know, and it's probably just fake. And that's really dangerous, because when you start saying things like that, and you ignore the mandates to stay 6 feet away from people, or wear a mask, or get the vaccine, or trusting the scientists that have provided with everything that we have up until now, and the modern day medicine that you probably use more than one time of your life, that you trusted blindly, probably. When you start questioning that just because you're not getting your way, it's not really of you questioning science, it's more of you just not being willing to adapt to your new situation, and not being willing to give up some things. And I don't think that this is a question of whether or not the scientific method is still relevant. I think this is a question of whether or not people in our nation, in our world, are willing to cooperate and are willing to do what it takes to get better. And that is basically what my paper is about. It's just going into how life was before we found out about this pandemic, and before we went into lockdown, and how it has affected our mind and our thinking, and how it's not really more of a we believe that the scientists are wrong. It's more of a we want to do what we want to do, and we need a ground to stand on it, and we'll just trash science and the scientific method without being clear on why. So that's really what my paper is about. Thank you for listening.
Your thoughts on it. Okay, so one thing I heard Alicia talk about is how the scientific method is, and scientists are being tested for something that scientists are
studying. Multiple scientists, not just one, multiple scientists are testing.
Doing over and over again, they're rerunning tests, experiments, and not only that, but it's a scientist and then a rival scientist that's trying to prove this person wrong to say this is the right way. I did it the correct way, but yet they're getting the same thing, meaning it's all right, it's all correct. But they're people who don't understand, really, who aren't scientific literate enough to understand what it takes to get something, is testing science and not believing in it and saying it's not real, when really it's just a bunch of facts that's being done, a bunch of tests, experiments that are being done. I mean, you trust your doctors, but you won't trust these scientists. They're doing the same thing as your doctors. The doctors are just looking at your body. Scientists are looking at chemicals and the earth, anything really, and it's just being tested like it's not being tested already. But they're not looking at it as a series of multiple tests. Another thing I heard Alicia say is that a thing with corona and why it's still spreading is because people are getting told what to do, what they shouldn't do, what they should do, and they're not used to that, and they're getting angry and like, oh, I don't like this, and you're telling me what to do, so I'm gonna do what I want and what I'm used to,
even though
There's a pandemic going on.
and I'm just gonna do what I want because I'm not used to this. They're not adapted to it. And it's just like a sense of doing what you want when you shouldn't. And so yeah, that's the two things I got from there.
So I just wanted to ask how the information about the woman whose blood was being taken for cancer treatment, how did that information get out to the public for you to know about it? Like, did the woman or her family release the information, or did the scientists eventually release it? Like, how did you get a hold of this information? And I agree with your topic. I understand that it's hard to trust scientists when they're withholding information and they're not really thinking about us, and the things that they're doing aren't really benefiting us, but they are kind of making us go a step backwards in evolution. Like, we're going as a pandemic, like we did back with the plague. So I understand where you're coming from, and I just want a clarification on how you got the information, if the scientists themselves didn't release it.
Okay, so first of all, to address the question you asked, there's a book on Henrietta Lack. There's also a movie you can watch, and you can just look her up on Google, and you can find plenty of facts on her life legacy and all that was done on her. And on feedback, I don't really have a lot. I just wish that you could touch more on your thoughts and your beliefs on it, and just like your thoughts on everything from, I don't know, something random, just like your thoughts on vaccines, to your thoughts on how it impacts racially, it impacts just everything. But other than that, I did pretty good, and I do agree with everything that you said. I just wish you could have explained more.